Today we're sitting down with James Sweazy. 13 years ago, he was homeless on the streets with nothing to his name, and today he owns over 6 businesses.
There's people that have been following me from different states for years. I have grown with that following. You know, I'm not a celebrity or nothing by any means, but when they hear my voice on the other end, they go, "You are the guy in the video."
How's that felt, having so many people be able to share with you, talk with you?
It works so well that it can become overwhelming. You talk about scaling, you need an assistant, you need an admissions teams, you need an office. And when I built my first house years ago, I put the office in the kitchen. Do something, even if it's just a little bit. Stop and look around. I look at my daughters, look at my wife, maybe look at the house, whatever that is, or some of our wonderful staff at one of our companies and this and that. And I will go, how did this happen? So marketing through social media started everything. So I pulled out a camera and went to make a video, and I didn't make it. Fear, you're afraid you're gonna lose something you have or not get something you want. After a while, I started documenting the journey. Like, instead of just making addiction recovery content, I started adding my life to it.
Today we're sitting down with James Sweazy. 13 years ago, he was homeless on the streets with nothing to his name, and today he owns over 6 businesses that have scaled to heights that people can't even imagine. I am super excited to share this conversation. He has so much wisdom and knowledge to share. You're going to want to share this with your friends. You're going to want to save this, and you're going to watch it over and over to keep gaining and growing your skills. James, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
All right. So I just forgot to push record. We're going to get right back into it. With you, tell us the story of how we even got to this conversation today.
Yeah, so you had mentioned, right, going through the neighborhood, looked over, saw the building sitting here, and there was a construction worker outside. And I said, hey, what's this going to be? Because in this neighborhood, there's a mixture of retail and residential, right? So we're always looking, what's coming next? Is it an ice cream shop? I hope it's not another lawyer. I hope it's not another dentist, right? You can only be walking distance from 7 lawyers at a time, right? And the guy said, oh, it's going to be a home remodeling place. And I was like, oh, great. There's only 12 of those right down the street right here. So whatever. And I kind of wrote it off. And then, I don't know, maybe it was a month ago, I turned the corner, and on the door, I saw a microphone, if I'm recalling correctly. I had that same microphone tattooed on my arm right here. So it caught my attention. And it said Louisville Podcast Studio, or Norton Commons Podcast Studio. And I had to find out, being walking distance from my house, what was going on. That's a business, this for sure is something I want to be walking distance from in my neighborhood.
Yeah, and so that's one thing that, we talk about marketing, because marketing is my thing. That's why I talk about on my podcast a lot. A lot of times, billboards aren't worth it. Like, I think, that's not a great marketing tactic, but that cost me $100 to get those signs up there. Think about the revenue that we've done together so far. That's great ROI just for having something there. But I know that having a place where it's a walking neighborhood, everyone walks by and they're all of a certain demographic, that's how we think about marketing. Now, with your companies, you've had to market a lot. And you've marketed through social media, which is great because that's what my audience needs to know how to do. So tell me what you've been able to achieve marketing through social media for your businesses.
So marketing through social media started everything, okay? And I'll get to that point, but to your point about billboards, you bring up something that I talk about quite a bit. The sign on the door, being in a walking neighborhood, that's very different, right? You're gonna get good ROI off that. I always tell people that signs on a billboard, it's like a sign you hang up in a business, right? I remember I was working in a kitchen one time, and the sign said, "Do not sit the mop here," okay? And the mop was leaning against the sign. They become so often, and you get programmed to not pay attention to them. You walk past the same sign. And I always ask everybody, I'm like, tell me what the last 3 billboards you drove past today, what did they say? They go, I'm like, exactly. It's part of the landscape. It's camouflage now. You see them going by, you don't read them, you don't pay attention, right? So I realized that a long time ago. I was like, we put an ad up on a billboard. The phone never rang. Maybe one of your friends will walk up and say, dude, I saw your picture on the side of the expressway. Who cares, right? There's no ROI in that, in my opinion, unless you're a massive brand. Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Amazon, something like that, name recognition. Okay, if you're that big, you can buy a billboard. So when I started creating video content on the internet, I had, I don't know if you mentioned it in the intro, I'm 13 years sober. I had been homeless at one point. And when I came out of the homeless shelter / recovery program that I went through, I noticed a void. There was something going on. They teach us in recovery that you have to help the next person. You have to be vocal about your recovery. Go find other people to help. It'll help keep you sober. And I had looked on the internet, and I had looked around, and I couldn't find much. I could, it's like there's this void going on. There's not a lot of people talking about it. And there's this thing in the addiction recovery community, anonymity. What that means is if you're in recovery, I'm not going to tell anybody else. I'm not going to go, hey, Cameron from the AA meeting or from rehab. You don't do that. You don't out other people. And people take that a little too far. I'm allowed to out myself. So this void in the market where nobody was talking about it. So I pulled out a camera and went to make a video, and I didn't make it. Fear grabbed a hold of me, right? Fear, you're afraid you're going to lose something you have or not get something you want. I was afraid I was going to lose the respect of the people around me, or I was going to not get something I want. It's not going to work anyway. Nobody's going to pay attention to it. I'm not going to get any views. This is a complete waste of time, and I'm going to embarrass myself. So I called a friend of mine, and I said, what do I do? I'm terrified to make this video. Excuse me. He said, why don't you make a video about how terrified you are to make the video? He goes, that's real. I did. I turned the camera on. There was no cuts, no edits, what we call native content. And I just started talking about how scared I was to make the video. And then I posted it and walked away and was like, okay. The comments originally that came in was, I support you. Hey, man, that takes courage to do that. I wouldn't even do this myself or whatever. A couple of positive comments like that. And then I started making regular videos, mainly centered around addiction recovery. Over time, I would add more life stuff to it, right? But mainly centered around addiction recovery. Every day waking up and explaining to people what I did that morning to wake myself up and not want to have a drink, what I was doing later on in the after day to stay sober. So it was very heavy addiction recovery or alcoholism recovery oriented content. And the views started coming. And they started picking up, and then you gain a few followers. And then somebody very high up in the community, a president of a very large company, followed me, and I couldn't believe it. And I started to realize, I was like, I know that guy. We've met before, but now he's following me to see what I'm up to. And I was like, there's something going on here. After a while, as you can imagine, I started documenting the journey, like Gary Vee says. Instead of just making addiction recovery content, I started adding my life to it. There's 200,000 people that follow me right now. Not huge, but I'll take it. You understand? That know my cat. I can post a picture with my daughters and my wife, and they'll go, hey, Ashlyn, hey, Avery. I've never met this person before. They know my daughter's names. They'll say, oh, Elena's looking beautiful today, my wife, right? Or they'll say, where's Prince? My cat. And that's when I started realizing what Gary was talking about, man. Documenting the journey, filling in, because I didn't want to become a social media billboard. You know the billboards that keep going by and you stop paying attention to them? If every post is about my business, call if you need help. Reach out. We'll get you into detox. Then it becomes, oh, here's just another advertisement for the company. So bringing my real life into it and being open about that. And dude, at one point, this was a big deal on Facebook. It's a big deal now because you don't get this kind of engagement, but I think I was getting 180 shares an hour. Several shares a minute whenever I would post a video in the morning. And then my inbox blew up with opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I think that's huge, is that a lot of companies today, big, really, really big companies who've gotten venture capital funding and everything, still don't understand the power of storytelling. That if you can convey a story, if you can convey an emotion, that is 10 times more powerful than paying some agency $30,000 to make some kind of commercial that does it one time. But you're telling stories every day. So you don't only get that power of someone paying all that money for one script. You're doing a script every single day. So you're getting the volume and the quality, which most people, to focus on just one or the other, and they don't do both. And the both is where I think the magic happens, really.
100%. So I look at people like, I don't know if you know who Marcus Lemonis is. He's the CEO and founder of Camping World. He's now just bought Bed Bath & Beyond. He's going publicly listed with T0. He's doing a lot of stuff right now. But I've always liked him because he posts pictures of him with his wife. Now, he does a lot of business, so he might be in his jewelry line or over here selling campers or this and that, but he's always posting and commenting. It's him personally. It's not automated. He responds to the comments himself, right? I've actually, I followed him enough and commented enough times that he gave me a 30-minute Zoom where he met with my wife and I and just spoke to us. He's had several TV shows and all that, but even before that Zoom, I felt like I knew the guy just by watching his shows, following him. But that social media piece and those little short native videos, the ones he was making himself, I would watch those. But I would also watch the ones that were being professionally produced, you know? So, yeah, having that window in your life. I think about it like when you turn your TV on, do you want to sit there and watch 30 commercials in a row? Who would do that? You stand up and leave the room when a commercial comes on, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On my timeline, I can only sneak commercials in about every fourth post, right? A post about the business. It'll happen. People start following you, especially in the addiction recovery community. Let's say somebody starts following me. They're doing what I said, like, oh, Elena looks beautiful today, or have fun on your trip. Oh, where's Prince, right? They'll be doing all that type of stuff. At some point, somebody might be unfortunate enough that their child needs our help, right? What do? They run straight to your social media and they do this number, right? They're going to flip in about a fourth post a link to the website for the company that they know that I own and operate with my partners. That'll pop up and they're going to click straight through it because they are sold on you, the window into your life. The business, I always tell people, like, they don't even care what your logo looks like. You ever spend a lot of time doing a logo?
Never, because I tell all my clients it's stupid.
You're a smart guy then, right? But I've watched it. I've even done it myself. It's like hours back and forth, text. No, it needs to look like this. No, it needs to look like that. Wait a minute, change the color. Put the words up at the top, not at the bottom. And this picture is all wrong. Hours of, wasted time. Nobody gives a shit, or pardon me, but nobody cares about what the logo looks like. If they follow me, know my wife, my kids, my cat, and they have a window into my life and they know what type of business I run, they trust me. They don't give a shit what the logo looks like, okay? They're going to click through. They're going to say, I know this service. I know this guy. When they hit the button, and then here's the thing, even at 6 locations, 5 states, over 400 employees right now, I will be the one that pops up on the phone. If you're now, not every phone call that comes into all the businesses, actually, a lot of those people don't know me, but if it's through my social media and you click through and you say, yeah, I've been following James for 5 years and I have this problem with my kid right now, I need some help, you're actually going to get on the phone with me. And I think that personal touch, the window in my life, and then when I'm not a celebrity or nothing by any means, but when they hear my voice on the other end, they go, you are the guy in the video, right? Mm-hmm. So that goes a long way. This video, what we're doing right now, goes a long way that these bigger companies or even smaller companies just don't understand.
It's accessibility is the thing. If you don't create accessibility within yourself, people aren't going to view you as accessible. They're not going to view you as like, oh, I can reach out and talk to you and have a conversation about a sale or my life or something like that. And that's the disconnect between why all these creator-led brands are doing so well and why all these large corporations that have none of that personality aren't, kind of like, see the creator growth versus their growth. You're like, this is some crazy, we've 5x the business in the creator economy versus like they're getting 0.5% every year in growth. So it's like, for you've done so well in figuring out that being a personal brand has such a high ROI, and you've depersonalized the ego behind it of like, because you're not making it about you. Like you do this because you love to share the story. And in my head, sharing things is kind of like lifting a weight off your chest. I love sharing things. I like giving other people context in my life because then I don't have to be like, oh, no one else gets it. Because when you start sharing yourself, like, oh, people do get it. Because now I'm getting all these comments saying, oh yeah, I've been through that too. I feel that too. So how have you felt through, all that engagement, all that community you've been able to build so far?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand the context of how have I felt?
Yeah, like how's that felt having so many people be able to share with you, talk with you, and have all this?
Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry. So honestly, it's amazing, and it works so well that it can become overwhelming. Okay. I have a friend of mine that's an NFL player. Okay. When we go somewhere, guaranteed people are gawking around the corner. They're thinking about walking up to the dinner table. I've never experienced anything like that, but I have experienced walking through an airport and somebody going and kind of looking like that. And then they're afraid to walk up to you. So I started making posts and I'm like, guys, if you see me out, please walk up and say hi. Okay. And then I've also been to speaking. I speak in multiple states around the country. I've been to speaking events where one time it was actually in Green Bay, where a bit of a line formed at the little table right after. And I was like, oh man, this is really cool. But then I ended up with the one guy that wanted to talk to me. And then I was like, we finished our conversation. I was like, all right, brother, have a good day. And he stood right there. Then somebody else talked. Then they went away and he popped right back up. He was going in between every person to where I was like, okay, I get it now. But I was able to recognize in that moment, I was like, dude, this really works. Okay. There's people that want to talk to you, they want your personal advice. Um, it can become heavy lifting, right? There is a point where you talk about scaling. You need an assistant, you need an admissions teams, you need an office. I have all that stuff. And there can be times where you get 6, 7, 10 people going at one time, and you give them what you can, and you have to move them on to you need to call the office now, schedule an appointment. Let's move forward with that. But dude, these are great problems to have, right? On the other side of that, there's people that have been following me from different states for years, have invited me out to speak at their events and this and that. And I still see them in the comments to this day, following the journey. And what I'm talking about is maybe they started following me while they were addicted to a substance or on alcohol, just freshly walked out of rehab, right? Everything has changed to where now I'm where I'm at, but maybe now they are a homeowner. They have this fantastic job, or they have started their own small business. We're no longer talking about first 30-day sobriety, real heavy stuff, right? Now they're following, and I'm watching them, and we're talking about business. I'm watching them start their lawn care company or their car dealership or whatever, and they're watching me over here. So I have grown with that following, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, having exposure to anything, new exposure, new experiences should teach you if you're someone who's a growth-oriented person. And that's having people put through that. And some people break. Some people go through something like that, and it makes them worse or makes you better. I mean, every experience kind of gives that worse or better metric. For you, so I always like to figure out what makes people successful. Like, why are you, oh no, it's better, but why are you doing the thing that other people can't do when it comes to business success, personal life, everything of that nature? And you've had such hardships. A lot of people have had a great life, and they still have never done anything close to what you've done. So what would you attribute that success to?
Well, there's a couple things. So one is my father is a successful businessman, and growing up, I always remembered he had an office in the house, and the guys that worked for him or girls would stop by the house. Now he had a business down the road, but there was always an office in the house. And when I built my first house years ago, I couldn't help it. I didn't even mean to. I put the office in the kitchen. There was a desk, a computer, a comfortable chair. And then that way the dinner table was here, the TV's right there. And I was in the middle of everything, but I was at work all day, no matter what. I'm at that desk. It's my spot. It's like that to this day, right down the street. If you go to our house that we built, my office is built into the dining room and kitchen. I'm kind of watching and following. So maybe some of that was programmed into me. So I built my office into my new home. So my daughters now know. They're watching me. The area where they do their homework, they call it their office, right? So maybe some of that. But this is something that I learned while I was in the recovery program / homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky. And I think it applies exactly to what you're saying right now, is fear, okay? Fear is a big 4-letter word, right? It doesn't mean, a lot of men have trouble with this. So you're tall, you're a big guy, not scared of nothing, right? That's how guys are. I'm not afraid to get in a fight. I'm not scared of nobody. That's not what fear means, okay? Fear means one of two things. You're either afraid you're going to lose something you have or not get something you want. So when you're working at one of these factories out here, you're working at, I don't want to name any companies like they're bad, but you understand what I'm saying, working on the line, doing the daily grind, and then you get off work and you got to go get your kids from school, and then you've got the rest of the night right there. And some folks kind of live for the weekends. Can't wait for it to be Saturday so they don't have to go to that place. Can't wait for it to be Sunday so they don't have to go there, right? I think it's this fear that sets in. They go, oh, well, if I start that business, what is it? I'm afraid I'm going to lose something I have or not get something I want. I'm going to give up this job right here, and that's going to be a big problem, right? I'm walking away from something that I'm familiar with, that I'm comfortable with, that pays my bills right now and takes care of my kids. Maybe it's justifiable, right? That's tough when you have kids. But they have that fear set in that if I go start this business, and so lose something I have, the current income, the apartment or the house I live in, the respect of my kids, family, whatever, and not get something I want. I don't know what it is as adults, man. We're programmed to think like it's not going to work anyway. And then what do? We get stuck into a place where You live for the weekends. You know, I forget who it was. Somebody did a study. Les Brown used to talk about it, that in most males over 40, heart attacks happen on Sunday night or Monday morning because they're so stressed about walking back into their job, right? That trap right there. And then we'll talk about this at a future date, but also taking that step and getting off into your own business, your own process. You know this. It creates a whole new set of problems, right? Tax planning, accountants, payroll, staff members quitting on you. No notice, boom. Now all of a sudden everything's on you. Guess what, Cameron? You're the CEO and the janitor. Congratulations. You get to work 7 days a week, right? But that was something that was programmed into me. When I leave here today, I consider this work, even though I'm having a great time. When I leave here today, I'm going to go back to my office that's built into my kitchen, and my phone's going to ring all day. I will be at work 7 days a week sitting there. But it's not that work that when I wake up on Monday morning, I'm panic stricken because I don't want to go. No, I hope I'm making sense. I talk for a living. So.
Absolutely. It's the similar ideology of the quote that I've heard is people are either running away from something or running towards something. Like that's what's driving most people. I think a lot of successful people don't like to acknowledge that maybe they're really good at running away from something. Like I'm really good at running away from not being successful, and because that scares me. And I'm like, I could be caught dead if I don't end up making this work. So it's either I make this work or it's just not, it's not going to not happen.
Yeah.
Like it's so do or die in that sense. And a lot of people talk about ADHD and all these other mental things going on. I mean, I think everyone has all kinds of fun sugar in their brain, but I think to be someone like us who works 7 days a week, you got to be a little unhinged. Like something's got to be a little different because most people just, you have conversations and they just don't get it.
Yeah. I'm a little unhinged. I agree with that. You have to be a little quirky. I have a couple friends that have millions of followers and you can barely carry a 3-minute conversation with them because they'll be focused on something else. They would have got up and walked out of this room right now and be doing something else. We're a little quirky, right? And I think the fear, or it's really the ease of operation. You think about this. What are you told the whole time as you're going through high school, college? Get a job, get a job, get a job. We're programmed that way, right? So you go get a job. You get as a W-2 employee. Taxes are taken out for you, right? I don't allow that to happen no more. I do my own books, and I'm only going to pay the IRS what I'm supposed to pay. That stuff that's cooked in ahead of time, a lot of you out there might learn. If you started your own business, opened an LLC, a pass-through corporation, you might, well, hold up. Why was I paying that much over here when I was working? Most people don't even realize that payroll tax, right? Like when you go to work for an employer, and let's say you make $1,000 and I'm just using round numbers, the government takes 300 of it from you, right? Well, they also take another 300 from your employer in the form of payroll tax. So they take that 600, you got paid 700. And then people will look at their employer and go, you need to pay me more. And I go, dude, the government just made just as much as you did this week for your work. It wasn't me that did that to you, right? But it's an ease of operation. The taxes are already taken out of your check. This is how much you have left. You stick it in your bank and then you live for the weekend, right? It's easy, but it's actually not easy. It's actually the harder way. It's disguised as easy because you go get a job. They already have the building there. It's ready for you, right? They have the building. They have the payroll. They have all that set up, right? And look, there's nothing wrong with working a job at other places. I still work a job at another place, right? I'm still a W-2 employee. What I'm talking about is your side hustle, right?
Yeah, there's a video I saw on Instagram that I love how it was illustrated, but it was a guy walking up to a business. He looks up and it's this giant skyscraper. He's like, whoa, that's cool. And this businessman walks up to him and says, hey, there's this box on the ground. I want you to stand in it all day. At the end of the day, I'll come back. And if you do good, I'll give you a job. And he stands there all day. The guy walks up and is like, here's $50. Great job. You're hired full time. And then the next day passes. His whole life is just standing in this box doing what this guy was told to do. Mm-hmm. That's it. And you see throughout the video, people coming up saying, hey, you should come hang out this weekend, all these other things. And he just gets older and older. And he's this old man. And he's like, all right, where the company's moving on, great job, you're out. And it just goes to show that, like, as a business, when you're not in charge of your own life and really taking the reins on what success looks like for you and what you want your future to be, that something else is going to take charge for you and take over that reign. So, where in your life do you feel like you've really taken charge of things that you want to control?
Man, that's a great question. I think probably when I was sitting in that little $600 a month apartment over in Hikes Lane over here, and I was making those videos I was telling you about, right? That was a form of it. And even in that little apartment, Cameron, my is tiny, with this little living room and this little table and the little kitchen right there. But the computer and all that was in the kitchen, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm watching Gary Vaynerchuk at the time. And he's like, dude, I don't care what your job is. They're like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to talk down on employment or anything of that nature. I'm still employed, like I said, as a W-2. He goes, what does your side hustle look like? What does your, I think Gary used to say, 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. game? What does that look like, right? Do you come home and sit on the couch and do nothing? Or do you come home and do online classes? So whatever company you're working at now, you can move up, right? I started doing that in that same place I posted that first video, right? Dude, I remember reaching over and grabbing the boost button on Facebook, and I put a $50 boost on a post, and I had to hide it from Elena because I didn't want her to know I was spending $50 on buying these dumb views or whatever that was viewed at the time. So I would boost it so I could get some more views out. I think that's taking control right there. I needed that $50, dude. You know what I'm saying? I was like, you know what? I'll just pick up an extra shift tomorrow. I was waiting tables at the time. I was like, I go in, I'll open tomorrow, I'll grab some other guy and be like, hey, you want to go home? And it works every time if you ever worked in a restaurant. I'm like, sure, I'll go home. Okay, I made the $50 back. You see what I mean? That was just in that small form, right? And then at some point, while I was doing that, a celebrity shared one of my videos and it exploded, right? My inbox from $50 and properly using social, even though I may not have been proper at the time, I at least started doing something with social media, with letting people look into my life, even if it was a horribly creative video by myself and only $50, right? I created that, I put it out there, a celebrity shares one of them. My inbox erupts with people from all over the country. How do I get off of blank? Whatever they were using, alcohol, painkillers, things of that nature. And I started looking, I was like, dude, I can't answer all these questions. This is too many people. I have to go to work, right? I called my AA sponsor at the time and said, what do I do? I turned the message button off on the page. I was like, I can't handle this no more. And I felt bad because I can't answer these people. I said, what do I do? He said, they're all asking the same question pretty much. I was like, yeah, how do I get off of blank? And I'm in this state. He's like, why don't you just read their questions and make another video and they can go watch your videos for free. You don't have to feel bad about it, whatever. So one day I'm sitting there and, on your Facebook personal profile, there's a little red dot. Sometimes you open it up and it says message requests. That's people that have tried to message you that you're not friends with. And it didn't let it go through because I haven't accepted a friend request from them. They had left my fan page, right? And because I turned the message button off, they searched my name. That's how bad people want to find you once they're in your life. And jumped over to my personal profile and started messaging me there. And I looked down 3,000 some missed messages, right? The first one I opened, it said, hey man, saw your video on this celebrity's page. I would really love to show you the business we're running. I'd like you to come down to Florida and visit with me. And I was like, seriously? So I called my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but I called Elena. I said, hey, I got some whack job in my inbox that wants to fly us from Kentucky to Florida, put us in a hotel for 3 days and show us their business. And my wife, as smart as she is, she goes, who cares what they're talking about? We don't have no money. Let's take their 3-day trip to the beach. I was like, you got a point. So I messaged the dude back and said, sure, I'll come see your treatment center, dude. What's up? Book me a flight. I didn't think he was going to do it. 20 minutes later, we had a flight booked. That guy, that one message right there, is my business partner right now and was the best man at my wedding. From using social media and having the guts to put $50 that I really didn't have to spare on a post.
Taking risk aversion. I think one thing that makes people really successful that I've noticed is that risk just doesn't seem like a real thing to them. Like there's just not risk. I'm just going to do it because why not? It's a embedded feeling. And I see this with the people that I'm around in my life that, they say they want to do something. They're like, oh, I really want to like try this thing out or try this. And I'm like, just go do it. You're an adult. Like you can do it. And they're like, I don't know. And they start thinking of all these excuses in their head. What would you tell someone who is stuck in their head and, doesn't really want to take a risk right now in their life?
Yeah. I'm going again. Everything centers around fear. You don't want to take that risk because you're afraid you're going to lose something you have or not get something you want, right? And we have all these safety measures that we put in place because we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid, it's called decision paralysis, right? There's a whole thing on my website about it. Decision paralysis, and the solution, somebody taught me this before and I thought I had something special that nobody had ever heard before and I was going to keep it for myself. Turns out it's a very famous quote from an NFL coach, but it's expect nothing, blame no one, do something. That is the solution to decision paralysis caused by fear. Expect nothing, okay? I don't know what's going to come of this podcast today here, Cameron. We got another guy coming by your podcast too. I don't know what's going to come of it, right? I don't expect anything though. I had a good time talking to you today. Maybe we'll break the internet. Maybe not. Who cares? Had a good time today. Expect nothing. Blame no one, okay? If something's wrong with a piece of equipment here or something today and it doesn't work out the way, we'll just do it again. There's no blame, okay? It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's just what it is. Get your head in that mindset of quit expecting it to be very successful. That's a recipe for failure, right? Quit expecting it to not be successful. Don't we do that? I expect it to not be successful, so I'm not going to do it. Expect nothing. Blame no one. Whatever project you go work on right now, whatever risk you're about to go take, whatever venture you're about to go on, whoever's out there watching, it's nobody's fault. Let's just go do it. And then you go to the gym, right? I'm in CrossFit. We call it a chipper, where there's this big heavy lift to do with all these push-ups and pull-ups. And then you look at it and go, oh my Lord, we call it a chipper because we're going to just do one rep at a time until we get to the other side, right? And the last one was do something. Now, when that guy taught me that, do something. Like I encourage people to manifest, which means if you're thinking about starting a business right now, how about go have a business card made with your name and phone number on it and the name of the business, then take a picture of it and tell all your friends what you're doing, even if you don't have the business set up in the bank account. How about call a screen printing company and spend $100 and get an embroidered polo shirt made or a regular t-shirt with that company name on it and start wearing it. Do something, even if it's just a little bit, right? Expect nothing, blame no one, do something. And going through that process right there, whenever you get stuck and you find yourself in decision paralysis from fear, recognizing those terms. I have decision paralysis right now because I'm afraid I'm going to lose something I have or not get something I want. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to expect nothing, okay? I blame no one. Let's go and pick a task and go do it no matter how small, all right? Now, with that in mind, I was reading Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crush It, okay? Have you read that?
Yeah, I've read all his books.
Okay, so you get about, I don't remember if it was a couple pages in or something like that, and a blank page pops up with one sentence in the middle of it. It says, send me an email, I'll tell you a secret. That was in that roach-infested apartment that was $600 a month right after the recovery center I was telling you about. I start flipping through the book, I'm reading, I get to that page. Send me an email, I'll tell you a secret. I was like, whatever, Gary, you're famous. What kind of autoresponder you got going on here? But I did it anyway. I sent an email. I said, hey, man, I'm reading Crush It. It said to send you an email. You have a secret. I'm interested. Something like that. I hit send, went and took a shower, didn't think about it. Came back out, and it had been responded to. I don't think it was an autoresponder because Gary said, holy shit, I can't believe people are still using this email address. He's like, he used my name. He said, James, the secret is put the book down, quit reading, and do something. That word popped up again. And it was that day. When talk about tasks so small, right? You want to talk about small tasks that cost me nothing? Was the day I walked in and, I reference Facebook a lot because that's where it started. Of course, there's way, in my opinion, better options right now. You need multiple of them, don't get me wrong, but I'm constantly referencing Facebook because that's where it started. I finally went in and that button had been staring at me that said create a page. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it. I hit create page, right? I answered all the little questions. It's like upload a background image. I didn't have one. I didn't know what that. So I made this horrible looking meme that said hashtag do something and uploaded it as the background image. And then I forget what I put in the profile, maybe my picture or something. And I hit create page, invite friends. And then I sat on that for probably a month in fear, stuck in decision paralysis, where I was not going to post a video because I was afraid of everybody else's opinion, what they were going to say about me and this and that. And then I made that video. I called my buddy that I was already telling you about. He said, make a video about being scared to make a video. I made it and posted it to that page. And then eventually I would put a $50 boost on that page, on one of those posts. And here we are, let's see, been sober 13 years. I guess that was a year or two. So here we are maybe 10 or 11 years later with more than 400 employees.
And that story there, I had my coach that I work with tell me the definition of power. And I don't think I'd ever heard of power this way. And ever since I heard it, I was like, this is amazing. I love this. I'm making this my definition now. He said power is the ability to say something, and the time in between saying that thing and something happening is your power. So if you can say something and then immediately start working, it's a powerful individual. Like, that is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
If you say something and it takes you 2-3 days to start something, you might still be powerful, but now you're less powerful. So it's that direct line between how fast can I have an idea, make a decision, and create it, make it a reality.
That's right.
So that was the story you're sharing now is a great way of being like, okay, you decided to become a more powerful person. It's not something like, everyone's always like, oh, these rich people, or they have something I don't. I'm like, oftentimes they lack something. Like, they're either really, really scared, they're really afraid, or they're doing something else. But they did the thing faster. That's it. Like, I don't think either one of us have great things figured out for anything. We just probably did things pretty quick, and opportunity just kept presenting itself.
It's a chipper. Like I was saying, just like a workout. You know what I mean? You had that idea, you had that thought, you went and started on it. And I don't think any business venture, social media page, or project that I've ever started or worked on is even close to finished. Matter of fact, I know so little about it. I don't know how far along we are on the timeline. I just keep chipping every day. And there's a thing, you have to think of it as compounding. Like when you're talking about finance, compounding, right? Whenever you make a 1% change this month, then you make a 1% change next month, that's not a 2% change, right? Because you're doing 100% of your best year. You're operating at 101% this month when you have 1% on. Well, now you're adding 1% on of 101%. And every month you do that, and I'm telling you, there's times I stop and look around. I look at my daughters, look at my wife, maybe look at the house, whatever that is, or some of our wonderful staff at one of our companies and this and that. And I will go, how did this happen? I don't know how it happened. It's the compounding effect of creating and accepting opportunities. Think about this. When a big opportunity comes along for you or anybody else that's watching this, right? If you're a broken individual with no money, that's partying too much, and you're just not getting, you're not available to accept that opportunity. So you think it's not happening for you, right? The truth is, whenever you're waking up every day and doing everything you can, and you're running that chipper and chipping away at it, you're now available to accept opportunities, much like the power statement you just made right there. An opportunity pops up right now. Well, I'm a little better funded than I used to be before, right? Mm-hmm. I can accept that opportunity and put action in immediately. Whereas 13 years ago, somebody present me with an opportunity, even to be here with you today, I would probably go, oh, Cameron, I need to think about that. I don't know if I can make it out there. I don't know if I have enough gas money. See all that? That pre-programming come back, like the fear I'm going to lose the gas I have in my tank, come to your podcast, and then maybe not get something I want out of it, right? It's crippling.
That's huge. Well, let's just do an ending statement right now with you. How can people get in contact with you? What can you do for them? Let's just get like a little elevator pitch going.
Right. So you can get in contact with me through any of our social or any of our, let me rerun that. Is that all right? You can get in contact with any of our companies. It's impactwellnessnetwork.com. That leads to all of our locations at all 6 states. My last name, Sweazy, Sweazy, is not hard to find. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I don't know. You know more than I do. All of them, right?
All platforms.
And then jamessweazy.com is a direct link to my calendar for booking opportunities. Or If you or a loved one needs help, like I was telling you before, I'm still what we call in the trenches. Okay. I still take calls from families and from people and try to guide those people in the right direction. Maybe it's one of our facilities, maybe it's not, but they will get an answer.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being on the podcast, James.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.